And Professor Spada, how would you distinguish this kind of anxiety from any other types of anxiety or any other types of worrying that people may have? Um, how is this different from all other types of anxiety that one may encounter?
So this is a really important question. In a way, it has components of different anxiety problems.
Mhm.
So the checking component may mimic um, features of obsessive compulsive disorder. The worry component is an integral part of generalized anxiety disorder. Avoidance might mimic agoraphobic type behavior when you want to stay home and not go out. So um, it's really a sort of pandemic related phenomenon, a phenomenon that probably would not have existed without a pandemic.
Mhm.
So what we found out is that clinicians around the UK have had great difficulties in being able to tell clients, look, what you've got is trauma following the pandemic, or you've developed obsessive compulsive disorder, because they don't meet the diagnostic criteria for those disorders. So
Right.
they've come to us and told us they are displaying the avoidance. They don't want to take public transport. They are constantly checking the news. They're paying attention to whether other people in the room are ill. So what do we call that? And I said, well, we've got to call it what it is. This new pandemic-related phenomenon that is not an illness, is not a new diagnosis. That's the last thing we want. It's something that has happened to many of us during this period, and we gradually let it go. Is it associated with anxiety? Yes. Is it associated maybe with certain personality traits? Yes. Why wouldn't it be? Is it associated with whether we've lost somebody during the pandemic or whether we were ill? It will be associated with these factors, but it's a sort of standalone entity. Our research is showing across many studies now, some of them not published yet, but about to be published,
Mhm.
is showing us that it's really a distinct entity that has emerged in this period.
So when you say that there might be certain personality types or certain personality traits that make you more susceptible, is the word I'll use, to encountering or suffering from this syndrome, what might those be, and what should we look out for?
Yeah, so the classic one is, it's a bit of an archaic term, but neuroticism. So the tendency towards being anxious
Mm-hmm.
is associated with the COVID anxiety syndrome. It's also appears to be the case that other personality traits, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, agreeableness and possibly extroversion, are protective. So if you're quite agreeable and quite open, it seems to be the case that you're less likely to sort of suffer or be affected by the COVID-19 anxiety syndrome. So needless to say, our makeup will have an effect, or at least our personality traits will interact or have an effect on the COVID anxiety syndrome. So will age. We know that it appears to be the case that the younger you are, the more likely you are to suffer from the COVID-19 anxiety syndrome, which is a counterintuitive finding, but
Yeah.
it's repeated across all our studies. I don't believe there are any gender differences.
Mm.
Um, COVID-19 anxiety syndrome is linked to risk status.
Mhm.
So if you're a diabetic or maybe a pregnant woman, you're more likely to display the attention to threat, the avoidance, the worry, the checking that make up the syndrome. So some of these patterns are sort of expected to be there. The one about youth is a difficult one to explain, but we have found that study after study across different countries, the UK, the US. I also believe in a recent study in China, we found a similar pattern, as if the sort of those who are more at risk, the above 50, let's say 50, 60, appear to be less anxious or display less of the COVID-19 anxiety features than those who are younger. However, this might change during the pandemic. It might change with new information that comes through, etc. That data was predominantly from the first half of 2020.
Okay.
So it could be possibly that younger people were more exposed to social media than the less young individuals, and that might have made them more anxious. We need to see how things change over time.